I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. This discussion is under reserve. And also, this discussion is under the blood of Joshua, under his covenant. I want to thank everybody once again for coming tonight, and just repeat for the audio portion of this that this discussion tonight is under reserve, and this discussion is under the blood of Joshua. So I just and I might go into that a little bit and explain to you exactly what I've just done. The thing that a lot of people have been saying to me is, David, you need to share what you're sharing and get it on video, get it on tape, and so that this can be made available to more people. And my prayer is that the Spirit of the Almighty, in speaking through me tonight, any truth that you hear that speaks truth to your heart, receive that from Him. Anything that may not speak truth to your heart, well, just take it and chew on it. Later on, if you want to spit out the bones, chew the meat, you know. What this is all about is, when we're talking about what we're doing and we have a grassroots movement nationwide, have people understand who they are. When people hear words like sovereign, they hear words like redemption, they hear words such as the different statutes, the Uniform Commercial Code, secured party, creditor, which it used to be, now it's just secured party, debtor. A lot of people are confused about that, and then whenever the pressure comes on by the system, then they really get confused, because usually that's when the spirit of fear begins to attack their mind, and they get flustered, and everything that they've heard before, it just goes out the window. And so what I always advise people is they have to count the cost. When you get into something like this and you want to make a stand for what is right, for righteousness, you need to take a look, listen, and before you jump in with 2 feet and start swimming in the water, you need to find out exactly who you are, number one. And when you have that comfort level, that comfort zone of who you are, then count the cost, be prepared for anything, and realize that in the scope of eternity, we're all here just in training. This is a boot camp. You know, here on this earth realm, we're just here as in training. Who are we? When you hear the term, who am I? Or who are you? We have in our language, we have pronouns, we have nouns, we have verbs, we have adjectives, and on and on and on. And you have to understand what type of language you're using with the system, because they understand what type of language they're using with you. And they train to understand, especially the administrative arbitrators, the ones that you see in what we call a court. That's really the chambers. It's really the king's bench. It's a bank. And that's why they have a cashier outside that collects money. And that's why all crimes are commercial crimes, because all crimes have a monetary value attached to it. It doesn't matter what it is. If you have a rock star that is accused of something, and the bail is set for $3 million so he can be free on his own recognizance, then he pays it if he has the money, and he's walking free. So all crimes are commercial crimes. Keep in mind also that in commerce, we use the word democracy, and you hear different teachers or people who are sharing, and this is a discussion forum. You hear that we are not the straw man, and people need to understand what the straw man is. And we've been taught that the straw man is the all uppercase spelling of our name. I contend that that is not so. I contend that the straw man is also the upper lowercase. When you take a look at any government form, any and every government form that you see, there will be a box and it says last name. Those words, last name, are for a fiction. They are not for a living soul. So it doesn't matter how you spell your last name, if that's what you believe you have. I do not have a last name. I have one given appellation, and that is David Sidney. It's not two, it's one. And how I've made it one is with a hyphen to bring it together. Those two have now become one. Because I'm not two, I'm one. Then also I have a family name. Some say clan name. Some say the house of. But that's not my name. And I am not my name. And people ask me, what do you mean, David? You're not your name. Well, I mean that I'm not a noun. A name is a noun is a thing. I'm not a thing. And I don't believe anyone in this room tonight is a thing. And a thing can't walk, can't talk, can't sleep, can't eat, can't write, can't sign. So, who am I? I believe that whenever I meet someone, I don't walk away and say I met a body. I walk away in the English language, I say I met a person. Sometimes I'll add an adjective to the word person, which, as we know in the legal context, means corporation or corporate fiction. And I walk away and I say, I met a person. What we mean by that is we really mean that we met a living soul. We really mean that we met a personality. We really mean that we met a character. Someone has breath, someone that has volition, someone that is a sentient being, that has thought, that can speak, that can walk and talk, that has life. I go a step further and I believe that we are all spirit beings. And as a spirit being, I have a soul, which is my personality. It exhibits and manifests my spirit wants, my spirit desires, through my mind, my will, and my emotions. You might want to add character, or you might want to add personality, whatever you want to say there. And how can you see who I am? Well, we have a voice. And out of my spirit comes words. And I like to say that words are containers of spiritual force, either for good or for bad. Someone can run in this room, and if the environment in this room is happy and joyful, they can come in here and start waving a gun and cursing and everything else and threatening everybody, and all of a sudden, the environment of this room changes. It's no longer happiness, it's no longer joy, it becomes fearful and doubtful about what's going to happen next. So, whenever I meet someone, I walk away and I say, I met a living soul. But that sounds funny to us, doesn't it? Whenever we say that, and by the way, this is going to be, I'm discussing here at the very beginning, and then later on, if you have any questions or anything, please write them down, and we're going to open back and forth a little bit. That'd be fine. Give some analogies, and give to support what I'm saying. Or let's take this as a letter. And let's say I'm writing a letter to you, or you, or you. And after I write the letter, and what do I put up here? I give your given appellation. The word appellation, if you look it up, really is talking about a title. And really, I put the definition of a living soul. I sign my autograph down here. Autograph is what we use, that term is used for living soul. So I sign my autograph, but before I sign my autograph, I put a word. And the word I put is by, B-Y, doesn't matter if the first letter is uppercase or lowercase, and then a colon. Colon, semicolon, put a colon. B-Y, colon. Just as the president of a corporation will sign by, colon, and put his autograph and comma president, or P-R-E-S, period. What is he doing? He's saying, I am not liable for any of the liens or levies or debts of this corporation. If it's a huge corporation, when he puts bicolon, that's what that means. A friend of Rice's said to me back about a year ago, he said that a senior officer of a bank 25 years ago told him, do not ever sign anything without BY colon. And what this does is it distances us completely from any liability. We are signing as an agent or an authorized representative for that corporate fiction name. Whether the name is a corporation name or whether the name is our corporate fiction name. Let me give you the analogy. I sign my name, and now I ask the question. Here's a letter that I write to you. Some of you have heard this before. And my name is on it. All right? My autograph is on it. Am I on the letter? What's the answer? No. The next question. Can I get on the letter? No. Yes, I can. I take the letter and I put it on the floor, and now and it sounds silly, but I'm standing on the letter. So I am now literally on the letter. But as silly as that sounds, I can't really get into the postal system with that letter and speak with that party that I'm writing to. So I have to get off the letter. I get off the letter. Now what's on the letter? Footprints. Okay. What's on the letter is wet ink. May have dried already by now. Okay? And that ink is on a piece of paper. That's not me. Any more than when we look into a mirror and we point to the image in that mirror, we can't say that that's me. That's a reflection of me. This is me. Or this living soul goes by me whenever I speak of me. Because me can also be a noun. Okay, a pronoun. So I can be a pronoun, right? So we have to understand, even whenever you've heard me say before, in a discussion in a King's Bench area, which is also a vessel, with the captain of the vessel flying a flag with a gold fringe around it, and he's the captain of the vessel, and the captain always makes the law, and he says, I make the law here. Don't you bring that constitutional stuff in here. Don't you bring that in. I say what goes in here. If he asks me, are you, and he says the name, and we've heard this before, are you addressing me? We answer with a question. And if he says yes, or she says yes, what do we say then? Well, for these proceedings, I go by me, addressee. What did I say? Did I say I'm me for these proceedings, I'm me, addressee? Or did I say, for these proceedings, I go by me, addressee? He's the addressor, I'm the addressee. If he presses it, okay, I go by the one given appellation, David Sidney, with the family name right out, by me, addressee. And I've done this on instruments before, and it has protected me beautifully. And people have called me all around the country. I've done this on instruments in the banking system. And when I've done it, people have called me and said, people are getting arrested for something like what how come you're not? I said, well, number one, I pray. And I believe that the Almighty has his angels about me. I believe that I stand by and under the blood covenant of Yehoshua, our Savior. He's our Messiah. And that's the Hebrew name that he went by. And also I say, and I believe his Spirit gave me wisdom to know how to sign. So I'm not liable for this. Some of the other things, the little practical things, if you're doing a document, put down at the bottom right, front and back, your initials or your thumbprint, and above it, you can do it in red ink, it helps. Red ink is how the Pope signs, signifying that he's a living soul. He's a flesh and blood man. Okay? And above it, it's nice to always have the word seal, capital S, lowercase e-a-l. And then beside it, to the left, put the word copy claim connected with a hyphen. Copy and claim.
Next to seal.
To the left. To the left of your seal. All right? You remember the signet seal?
Yeah.
What are we doing? We're putting the seal. And for you all here in Texas, I highly recommend that you fly the Bonnie Blue at the top left, and you put a $1 postage stamp over here, taking a red pen and signing over it with your autograph with the word "by" in front of it with colon, and then underneath it with the autograph, put the words "with the autograph." Whoever has that is the postmaster in commerce. All right? Over here, the flag establishes what law this is flying under. So the Republic law is what it flies under. And it becomes a bill of lading in commerce, in the Sea of Commerce, and there's cargo on it. If your intellectual property, which is on it, that you've done into the county records, and also in the Uniform Commercial Code, that is cargo. All right? And then if you also say here what Walt is doing, and many of you know Walt, he has the collateral for the living soul, not the body, which has always been the case, and that's why they grabbed the body and put it into a warehouse with a number on it. And they don't call that warehouse property. They don't call it by the name. They call it by the number. And so now the other thing I wanted to say was, just to give an analogy, is I asked the question, before we were born into this earth realm, I asked the question, were you alive? What's the answer? Yes. Where were you alive? In the womb of your flesh and blood mother. All right? Did you have a name? Most likely no. Except your Creator knew you. Your Creator knew who you were. He may have had a name for you. We don't know. All right? He may have had a title or some way of indicating that you are different than this baby over here that's in this mother's womb. All right? And sometimes the flesh and blood mother on this earth realm, they will name their baby before the baby is actually birthed. All right? So the next question I ask is, which follows this, is pretty logical, is when you were born through the birth canal, that live birth of the flesh and blood living soul coming out into this world, all right? In all normal cases, were you alive? Yes. Were you breathing? Yes. Could you move? Yes. Could you scream? Could you cry? Absolutely. How many of you had the name? Most of us didn't have the name. 30 seconds, 1 minute after we were born, we didn't have the name. So what I'm doing is I'm giving an analogy to show what I'm speaking of, that we are not the name. We go by the name. And if you go back years ago, decades ago, in the old black and white movies, the cowboy movies, usually it was the cowboy movies, you would see it, Gene Autry and some other names like that. You would hear the actors actually introduce themselves in the movie to some other character in the movie, like, I go by the name, or the name is, and they put the definite article in front of their name. The name is. But rarely would you ever see them say, or hear them say, I am John Wayne. They would say, I go by the name John Wayne, or I go by John Wayne. And if you really want to start seeing some reactions, do it with what we call a public servant. It doesn't matter who the public servant is. It could be a clerk that's taking some money. It could be someone in a quote-unquote government building. Just try it. They ask you what your name is, and say, I go by David. I go by John. I go by Mary. And if you really want to get a reaction out of them, say, I go by the name David. I've had them respond to me all the time. All the time. Either they look at me in silence when their jaw drops open, or they look at me and say, you go by the name, huh? Oh, you go by the name. And they mock me. And I look at them and I say, yes, that's right. I go by the name. And I wonder if they really are cognitively aware of what I'm saying, or if it's the Spirit that may be behind this whole system, in this big matrix system that we're living in but we're not of it. We're living in it. Some of us are of it, and if we make ourselves of it with the system, or our hand contracting with the system. So this another analogy is, if you pull out what we commonly call an ID, and if you have someone say, "That's you. That's you, isn't it?" and they're pointing to the picture on the ID. Well, is that you? If they say that to me, I say, no, that's not me. And I've said it to them before. I've said it to the policy enforcers. Policy is a little bit longer than police, but means the same thing. They're enforcing policies, codes, rules, and regulations of a corporation. The city of Dallas is a corporation, city of Irving's a corporation, city of Arlington's a corporation, city of wherever, Fort Worth, they're all corporations, and they all have corporate charters. And all these public servants are all under oath. They have an oath of office to uphold the corporate charter. And one of the things that the corporate charter is very, very clear about is that the corporation is not to violate the rights of the people. If we go into a summons, or if we go into an invitation, I should say, we, the living soul, we walk in and we're answering to that name. If we do not put a certified copy of the oath of office of that public servant sitting up there on that bench, if we don't put that in, and you can obtain it from the Secretary of State's office. Now, if you're given trouble about obtaining that certified copy, then you can invoke the oath of office by saying, "For the record, upon your oath of office." That's all you have to say. It's "for the record," and you are now invoking his oath of office. You will see a huge difference of how that case goes forward, how those proceedings go forward. For the record, because everything in a record court is for the record. That's why there's a recorder, a court recorder. What's called a court recorder. For the record, upon your oath of office. And you can't say it too many times. You can't say it you parrot. Just be a parrot. Everything you say, for the record. For the record, upon your oath of office. May I have your name, please? If you're in commerce and you're conducting your commercial affairs, don't you like to know who you're doing business with? I do. And I want it for the record. If I'm ever told, raise your right hand and swear, all right? Well, isn't it only fair that the oath of office, that he has raised his right hand, or she has raised their right hand, isn't it only fair that for the record, that is invoked for the record, and you call that to remembrance for those proceedings? It's only fair. Try to get one of them to actually swear that they will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God. Right? Try to get any of them to do that. Try to get the prosecuting attorney to do that. Or the attorney for the quote-unquote fictitious plaintiff. I just mentioned something. I'm just flowing here, so sometimes you'll hear me go off on tangents. If you look in Black's Law Dictionary, 7th edition, Black's Law Dictionary, you look under fictitious plaintiff. And it says very clearly that a fictitious plaintiff is perpetrating a fraud upon the court. Isn't that wonderful? I think it's wonderful news. I think it's great. Because the day will come that Yahushua said, that day will come that they will grab you and they will drag you before the magistrates, before the judges. Take no thought in that day, in that hour, what you're going to say. For the Holy Spirit of your Creator, He will bring to your remembrance all things. And He will bring to you the words to say. But what do we need to do prior to that time? We need to study to show ourselves approved. All right? So all of this all ties into the authorized version of the Crown Scriptures. The Crown has authorized the version, and it was King James of England that gave the authorized version. There's another authorized version that they really go by as well, and I believe it's the Catholic Church. But the Catholic Church and England were in they were in treaty, they were in contract at the time, and they still are in contract. So everything is all the strings are being pulled by the universal church. So we have a lot of words that we really don't understand what we're saying, that have come into our language from all different sources. And like, for example, recently we heard in a meeting last week, I believe it was last week, that Mark got up. Is that right? He got up and he related his testimony, his version of what happened being incarcerated for a short period of time and how he got out. And he said that they had him sign a PR bond. Okay, how many of you know what a PR bond is? Some of you do. All right, personal recognizance bond. I had a friend over in Texarkana. She had heard this from somebody else. She gives me a call, all excited. She's a grandmother. She said, "Hey, I heard something that you're going to be really interested in." She said, a guy down in Florida recently walked into a case that he was just at the end of his rope. And he walked in and he was sitting in the peanut gallery and waiting for his name to be called. All right, and that was the fiction name. He did understand that. And he didn't really know exactly what he was going to say. He had a lot of things that were going through his mind. He was apprehensive. And when the name was called, he stood up without answering, without opening his mouth, and he walked forward into the bar, opened it up, and walked in. Now, what's for the record? If the court reporter is typing anything, all she or he can type is someone walked in to the court area, to the bar. Because there was nothing acknowledged yet about the name. The name was called, but they have to get our acknowledgement, verbal acknowledgement. Are you such and such a name? When he went forward, of course, the first question that came to him was, "Are you such and such a name?" And he paused, thought about it, raised his finger, and pointed at the administrative arbitrator, the facilitator, the King's Bench, and he pointed and said, "I do not recognize you." Pointed to the court clerk, "I do not recognize you." Pointed to the attorneys, "I do not recognize you." Pointed to the court reporter, "I do not recognize you." Pointed to the bailiff and said, "I do not recognize you." Complete silence. And he turned around and he slowly walked out. And no one said a word. The whole courtroom was completely silent. What was he saying? Well, she read it to me from the Black's Law Dictionary, and I got excited, and I went and confirmed it, because just because someone says something to me, I want to confirm it myself. So I went, I believed her, but I just wanted to see what it said. And I checked several different versions, the 5th edition, the 7th edition, and it took me to, the word recognize took me to the word recognizance. And to summarize the word recognizance means, by definition from the Black's Law Dictionary, it means that someone is contracting with the Crown in its judicial capacity. And so when he pointed his finger and said, "I do not recognize you," what was he saying? I do not contract with the Crown. 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 Now, who are these agents here? Who are these living souls that are hiding behind their corporate fiction capacity? And he's the only living soul in there. And what did he say when he said I? He said, I, who am I? I is a living soul. Because a fictitious plaintiff can't say I. A fictitious plaintiff can't say me. A fictitious plaintiff can't sign, can't walk, can't even sign a power of attorney to give to the plaintiff's attorney that's representing the fictitious plaintiff. Produce the power of attorney that's signed, giving you, Mr. Plaintiff Attorney, the authority, the power of attorney to represent the fictitious plaintiff. And some other things that just tie into this is, and to this day he hasn't heard anything. Where there is no contract, there is no case. 1938 Supreme Court, Erie Railroad versus Tompkins. So I'm just moving on here. I want to share with you a little bit. Many of you have seen the Matrix, the movie The Matrix, or maybe the second version, the first version. Let's say that this is the Matrix right here, okay? Joe, what did the when we looked this up, was it ecclesiastical matrix? What did it say that talked about the Catholic Church and having all of its peripheral branches? And it used this word right here, matrix. Right? Do you remember that there in the Blackstone Dictionary?
It has a stem that relates to patria is father, matria would be mother. So that would be, that which gives birth to everything. All these perverse little children out of man.
Over here we have a word, patriot. And we hear that word being used, and I tell people, I'm a non-patriot. And they say, what do you mean? And I say, well, if you look at the root word, as Joe just shared with us, the root word in the Latin is patria, okay, meaning father, all right? And this is the Holy Father in the Vatican, all right? So if I'm a patriot, I am somehow the son of that Holy Father. We also have a word that we see too, S-E-E. Usually it's capital S and lowercase e-e. And sometimes we see the word holy in front of that word. I believe we have tried and tried. I've looked and looked for a definition of that word. Maybe I should go to the Catholic. I haven't found it yet. But if anybody finds it, please let me know. I'd like to find out. But the Holy See is the Holy State. All right? And I believe it's been translated to mean state. So whenever you have the member states of the United Nations, those are member sees of the Holy See. Whenever you have the United States, you have United Seas. So what do we live here in, we live on the land called Republic of Texas. We are Texians. This is the word that was used in 1836. Nowadays, the state has come in and they're using the word Texan. But I'm not a Texan, I'm a Texian. I'm standing on this soil, and so I'm living in the Republic of Texas.